I'll be talking about ways that we can use parents, and I think that probably many people in here are going to have a lot more expertise in this area than I do. I have a background in working with parents and doing evaluation, doing parent-child interaction type things like that, so that we can use parents to help augment the learning of a young child. And the research is pretty clear that when parents are involved in a child's schooling, kids get better grades, they have higher test scores, they will tend to take harder classes even in high school, surprisingly enough, when they're pretty difficult to get to do anything. They will do better socially at school, and they're more likely to graduate and go on to college. And this is especially true for lower income families who are involved in school, which is part of the reason that a program like Head Start uses parents so much, because they know the success of that. So we'll be talking about children who are deaf or hard of hearing, and there is some research that indicates for those children as well, when their parents are involved in their activities, their academic activities with their children, the kids do better as well. And they do better in terms of social-emotional functioning, whether they're in a self-contained or a mainstream type classroom. So about a year and a half ago, I worked with a colleague of mine in Wisconsin to develop a parent involvement type of intervention in Head Start. And we spent about 2.5 months working with the parents and sending home activities every week with them, or with their children, so that the parents could do those at home. And what parents said, for me the most powerful one is the parent who said, I don't have time to put things together to do with my child. And how many parents don't know what to do with their kids also? So I'm really thankful that you have done this for me. I used to work in Kentucky in an inner city school district, and there we had, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Louisiana, or Mississippi. We usually battle it out for the bottom 3 states in the country in terms of education. And I was in one of the worst school districts in the state of Kentucky. And I took the worst school in our district and sent home activities for parents to do every week with their young children. I'd go in every week and just read the teachers' lesson plans and what they would be doing with the young children that week. So from kindergarten through 8th grade. And I then thought of activities that the parents could do at home, simple, fun activities that could augment their child's learning. And we found that 85% of parents participated, which the teachers said, nobody is going to do this. Parents don't care, they don't get involved, all these sorts of things. And what we found was the parents, when they had ideas for what they could do with their kids, they actually responded and they interacted. So our current project is funded through a Stepping Stones of Technology grant, and what we'll be doing is providing a handheld computer gaming device. It's actually going to be like a Garmin GPS, and we'll be putting math games on there, because what happens for children who are deaf or hard of hearing on average is they do not get past the 4th or 5th grade level of accomplishment in math. And math is a very important skill that we all need in life, right? But the average child, by the time they finish high school, they're still functioning on a 4th or 5th grade level in math. And so what we're doing is we're creating these interactive math games that are engaging for young children. They're in the design process right now. We've met with teachers at a couple of different schools here in Utah, the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and we are working to develop these games, which will begin with addition, because addition is still a problem for 4th and 5th grade children. We'll move on to subtraction, and we hope to do multiplication and division as well. And what we'll be doing is in this they'll use the GPS unit. They have to actually go to a location. The game will tell them where to go, and reading is a problem as well. So the message will be signed and read we'll have the text there as well for the child. And then once they get to a location, they'll be asked to do some different types of math activities that will be engaging for them in a like cartoon. We've asked the teachers what would be most engaging for these children, and they believe that in a cartoon format would be the most engaging. So that's what we'll be doing. We're, of course, focusing on improving their math skills, but we also need to realize that language and literacy are really important as well. Because when you write a math problem for a fourth or fifth grade child who is deaf or hard of hearing, and you say, John has 5 apples, Mary has 3. Who has more apples? Or how many more apples does John have than Mary? Very often, the children do not get that. They don't get it at all, and they might think that's an addition problem. And so this is a real barrier for these young children, and we're hoping that because kids are so engaged in technology and really like technology, that we might be able to address this issue. And of course, what we want to do is involve parents so that children's learning at home is enhanced. Because, the teachers only have this period of time with the kids, but parents do have more time at home and could theoretically help to increase their learning. So what we're going to be doing is we'll be talking with parents not until August of next year, or of this year, sorry, about how they're currently involved in their child's learning at school. We have indications that they're not at all being included in their child's learning right now, except for like an IEP, those sorts of things. And then how they would like to be involved. We'd like to get some of their opinion first and brainstorm with them. We'd also like to find out more about what types of technology they have available at home. We know that we could be limited in this. The GPS devices that we're going to have, we are hoping that we'll get to send them home maybe once or twice with the kids so that the parents can see what they're doing. We'll also be inviting the parents to the schools so that they can see what the kids are doing and know more about it and be able to hopefully reinforce that at home. We are hoping that we can include some sort of technology that the parents can do with their children at home, but again, a lot's going to depend on what sorts of technological, equipment that they have at home. What we will hope to do is do things that are engaging to kids, like, you have a game, a deck of cards. You can play math games with that, playing war. You can do, take all the jacks, queens, and the kings out, and with your child, sit there and play war, and whoever adds up the 2 numbers first gets to keep them, for example. Whoever subtracts them first gets to keep them. Whoever multiplies them first gets to keep them. So that's a simple idea that for parents who do not have technological devices at home, they can still be helping their child in math, just to learn that basic memorization. Money games, even without a computer or even any sort of PlayStation or other kind of, or even if a parent doesn't have a cell phone with some sort of game where they could download some sort of math game or other things for kids, they can still play money games as well, because they can sign to their kids at the store about, this costs $4. If I give him $5, is that enough money? So there are everyday activities that parents can be doing at home to support the children's learning at school. You know, there are measurement games, cooking ideas. That's a great way for kids to learn about fractions, balancing checkbooks, and you know, maybe spatial things like drawing a map of the neighborhood. These children are coming in at a maybe first grade level in math, and so a lot of this whole project is really unknown because we don't really know how the technology is going to work out, how they're going to be able to understand the game. When we've met with the teachers so far, they've said to us, it has to have as few words as possible. They won't be able to handle the words. You can sign for them. But the reality is that when children continue to grow up and become adults, they're going to need to have these skills in the real world so that they can get by. And what we want to do is help provide them with basic skills so that they'll be able to get some of those real life skills over the course of time. Some of the barriers to involving parents, the biggest one is our grant funding. We don't have enough so that we can provide handheld devices for parents to be practicing and playing these games with young children. And, you know, a big thing is going to be making that link between the technological games at school and activities that the parents can do at home. How do we make it so that there's a natural link for the children and for the parents? And then, you know, communication between the parent and the child. What is the parent's level of sign language? How do they communicate right now? Is that pretty seamless already? And these are things that we're in the process of learning. Time. You mentioned parents saying they don't have enough time to do these things with their children. And, you know, the parent understanding, how am I going to do these things with my child? So we need to make them so that they're pretty easy, pretty simple. And then children who are deaf evidently sometimes have a high impulsivity level and can get frustrated very easily as well. How will we handle this? The thing that we'd like to do, technology is the wave of the future, and we'd like to make sure that these children are introduced to technology, that they can incorporate technology into their lives. And we don't really know how this is going to work. From our talks with the teachers, they've said that the children have very little experience with technology. They don't have very much experience with it at all. And so we're interested in learning more. And I actually am going to have a question for you. You said that you have children who are hard of hearing.
We do.
How does that work for you?
Amplifiers, headphones, and again, as you can imagine, these aren't earbuds. They put in. These are we've experimented with some software that allows you to add sensor aspects, so they can tell when the movement, especially in music and things like that. It's hard, and I don't have any purely deaf children, so these are kids with some element of hearing. So amplification helps and things like that. But again, it's also the same thing with kids who are vision impaired too. We make those different changes. Right. They get bigger screens, all those kind of things. So yeah, we're messing with it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if anybody has suggestions or ideas about how you might use technology to support parents to support their young children.
I'm just curious, how did you guys come to decide to use a GPS versus like a tablet?
We, excuse me, we're from up in Logan, and we have an American West Heritage Center there, and we've tested it. I say we. I wasn't part of that project, but my colleagues have tested this, a device that can be used at the game or at the Heritage Center to basically lead, it's sort of like a scavenger type hunt where children are learning about the American West in the early 1900s, and they are using a GPS device to sort of help, they have to go to a certain location, and then it tells them their assignment for that time. So it's sort of, for the kids, it's sort of exciting because at the American West Heritage Center, they're actually trying to find these locations. And what we're hoping at the school is, first of all, it'll be done outside and in a place where kids can move as well. And the GPS device will help in that regard. And it was actually less expensive than some of the tablets. Yes?
A suggestion. There's quite a literature on verbal self-direction used specifically for sort of impulsive, hyperactive kids. What occurs to me is I do not know whether anybody has done that in a signing context as opposed to a oral, verbal context. Donald Meichenbaum, M-E-I-C-H-E-N, has written a good deal in that area. And had quite a bit of success over the years with treatment of hyperactive kids. And I'm just wondering to the extent that that shows up as an issue in your group, not only for high activity levels, but used in a variety of other aspects of education.
Right.
And generally, the one other thing is, it becomes successful when it moves beyond simply the idea that the kid repeats the verbalization that the adult supplied for them. You know, teachers who talk about use your words and so forth.
Right.
But when it gets to a point where the kid is generating his own language that he needs to put a little bit of control in.
Right.
So,
Do you know what? I'll remember that name, M-E-I-C-H, Donna.
no, and that M-E-I-C-H-E-N.
Like
B-E-R-G.
B-A-U. I'll mention that to the teachers who are working in the classroom with the children as a possible strategy for dealing with impulsive behavior. What about any ideas for how we could use technology to support parents for children who are deaf? And most of the children are deaf in their classrooms. The teachers are really excited about using the technology in the classroom. They think the kids are going to be really engaged with it, but that there's going to be a bit of a learning curve. And of course we know kids pick up that stuff so easily, and I think it will be a similar process for children who are deaf as well.
Do you use any kind of like competitive strategies? So students might compete against each other for high scores, because mediated learning is very powerful.
So that if like 5 children in a classroom have the game,
if they're on the same program, you sort of compare the scores and you have social interaction that starts with the program, but the students sort of focus on the program as a group rather than just as individuals. Can you see?
We were actually going to do learning pairs, at least 2 children working together to try to figure this out, and it'll be an actual game. They'll have a goal to get to the end of it, and you know, the thought that they could work together and maybe sort of compete with other teams could be helpful.
Because with deaf children, a lot of times they're in their own world, and if that world can expand to include another individual, then you've got another important concept that you're laying down.
Right, right. We understand that the teachers do use a bit of cooperative learning techniques already, so I think that will be a fairly easy thing to implement, and then adding sort of that goal and maybe a race sort of thing could be helpful. You were going to have a suggestion also?
I was just wondering, you talked about, you've had a lot of conversations with the teachers. Have you had conversations with the parents and the students to see like from the parents' perspective, since they're the ones that are home with the child, they may have some suggestions for how to link that home activities to school. And then just from the child's perspective, what's going to be most helpful for them, since they're the ones that are going to be the recipients of all this.
Right. And you know what? I've asked that exact same, I'm the evaluator on the project, and I've asked that exact same thing. Can we start talking to parents? And we're not allowed to talk to parents until next year, until August. And I'm sick about it because essentially we're going to lose a year on the project, because I think you're right, the parents would be the ones who could provide so much. You know, we don't have any idea about what kind of technology they have available at home. Parents could all have technology. We could be doing some really cool things to augment what the kids are doing at school, but we're not going to find out till at least August.
Is that a state mandate, or what prohibits you from talking to parents?
It's grant funding. It's you know, I guess we could, but we would normally compensate the parents, and there's no money in the budget for compensating parents this year. You know, we would say, you know, if we wanted to do like a focus group or something with the parents, we'd want to give them some sort of a gift. Even though, do you know, when you make me think of that, I think, gosh, we could go get gift certificates from, you know, we could maybe ask businesses.
Why would you think the parents would need to be compensated for? I guess I'm a little surprised.
That's a
The
good
compensation comes from you care about my child.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's, do you know, that's a great insight. I'll ask our team if we can do that, and not provide compensation. And you're right. If it were me as a parent, and it was something that could potentially help my child, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you. Any other ideas for using the parent, how to support parents? So I wonder, with your programs, what sorts of things do you do right now to engage parents? You engage them every day.
Yeah.
What about other people?
I mean, the internet's just an amazing tool, and even parents that don't have a computer at home, they'll go to the library to get my email notifications. And so I do just like a mass email. And
How often do you do that?
I do it weekly, but that might be hard for some parents, but a monthly thing, I think they definitely would. And I put, here are the main things that we're talking about in class, here's how you can help your kid. I can even give downloaded, you know, documents. Here's a game you can play. So I mean, I know that just sounds really basic, but it doesn't, because a lot of people don't have the internet, so you're frozen there. But if parents care enough, they'll go to the library to access that information.
Right.
So just an email.
That's nice. And what sort of response do you get back from parents?
They love it.
Yeah.
They love it. They like to know what's going on. I mean, parents love it. They love their kids, and especially if they're struggling. Those are the parents that are most appreciative of the struggling. The parents that have struggling kids.
Yeah.
So they'll read it.
But one thing, and this may be something that you could utilize, but parents in like situations gravitate to each other. So, for example, I've got a lot of Asperger's kids in my school. So those parents, but my parents are very good about getting with each other and creating co-oping and things like that. So if I have no doubt the associations that these parents belong to could be invaluable to helping you guys get that particular thing. So.
Right.
There, I mean, besides just an email, there are online destinations or groups and things that you can set up so that people can always just go back and check there too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, but like Facebook, you can do groups.
Yeah, that'd be better.
Right.
Or even a blog where people follow it. You could
Yeah.
post something and it goes out and you can come back and check the archives and things like that. And help them feel connected to the
Right. Right.
In the blog, the parents can talk to each other.
Yeah, that'd be
See each other's
Comment
challenges.
exactly.
Oh. You know, I should find out if the schools we're working with have any sort of blog, because those are very, I mean, they're parents in a very specific situation, and if they don't, that would be a great idea for support. I mean, you know how when you have a 2-year-old child, you think you're the only person who's experiencing temper tantrums and all those sorts of things? And it's like, what did I do wrong or whatever? And then when you learn all of a sudden that somebody else is experiencing the same sort of thing. Thank you. Thank you.